UFC 301 is coming up next weekend, and today I have the full card breakdown and predictions from me. We're going to go through all of the fights. Timestamps are going to be there if you'd like to skip to any particular part. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels, and like I just said, guys, welcome back to another full card breakdown and predictions video. We're going to be going through predicting the fights. I'm going to be talking about fighters that I want to win. I'm going to be talking about the betting side of things. We're going to be talking about everything regarding these fights. With that being said, guys, I know it's a little bit of a long intro. At 30 seconds, I think I'm doing okay with it. Let's get into the first fight for today. That being Ismael Bonfim taking on Vinc from Hell Pichel. I'm excited to watch Vinc Pichel, even though at this point in his career, he's 41 years old. I don't know. I've always kind of just liked him. I've kind of liked the nickname that he had. He was typically pretty fun. He's a fighter who's pretty decent everywhere. The only hole in his game, well, I mean, I don't mean to say it's I don't really mean to dismiss that. It's a little bit of a big hole in his game. So Vinc Pichel, he's always been one of those fighters that hasn't really been able to really accomplish too much. And he's taken on Ismael Bonfim, who is a crazy striker with, I mean, he has technique in his pockets, but he doesn't always use it. He wants to come forward, he wants to throw hands, and he wants to knock you out. He can be technical, though, when he does show it at times. It's just sometimes he can get caught up in the moment. He's pretty good both offensively and defensively. Ismael Bonfim. I was pretty high on the Bonfim brothers, and I still am to some extent. But Ismael Bonfim, the only problem is he was looking flawless in the UFC. We've all seen him. He was coming in. He was killing people. He was looking really, really good. Now, I know Benoit Saint-Denis is a lot better than a lot of us thought. And just 9 months ago, Benoit Saint-Denis wasn't the killer that everybody made him out to be, right? Or like he excelled expectations, I should say that. Now, I was really disappointed in this performance because he didn't just lose. He did nothing but just eat body kicks and try to brawl. He wasn't adjusting. He wasn't defending. And I hate it when fighters do this. And guys, if you watch a channel at all, you know that I really, really don't like when fighters do this. Instead of adjusting or defending, he decided to taunt his opponent. That says a lot about a fighter. Once he starts losing, he really, really starts losing. It just made me disappointed. He ended up getting taken down and he ended up getting choked out, which again, was a little bit unfortunate. Now, looking back on this fight, if they ever had a rematch, I think Benoit Saint-Denis would kind of do the same thing. But still, man, it was very disappointing. But anyways, I just wanted to note on that. I'm no longer as high on Ismael Bonfim as I used to be. But at the end of the day, guys, when these two match up, Ismael Bonfim still has really good technique. He still has a lot of power in his hands. And Vinc Pichel is 41 years old, going on 42 years old. He isn't the fighter that he once was. If Ismael Bonfim wants to wrestle, that option will be there, but I don't think that Vinc Pichel will even be able to stand with Ismael Bonfim. Like I said, Vinc Pichel is just a guy who's kind of decent everywhere. There's nothing really special about Vinc Pichel, and I hate saying that. I hate being disrespectful in that way if you take it that way, but I'm very confident on Ismael Bonfim to win the fight. Now, I do want to take a look at the betting side of things, but before that, I'm still going to cheer for Ismael Bonfim. I see him having a bright future ahead of him, and I don't like Vinc Pichel enough where it's like, yeah, let's go the veteran, you know what I mean? So, nothing really too much into look at there. I'm cheering for Ismael Bonfim. I hope he gets the win. It's just, I'm not a big fan of the dude. It's just, he has a bright future. He has exciting fights, so why not? But taking a look over at the betting, you can see that Ismael Bonfim is already in. You guys, for those of you watching the video, this is coming out on Saturday right after the UFC card. I'm recording this on Thursday. Obviously, there are no props, and Ismael Bonfim is already sitting at a minus 450 to 500-ish odds. And you can see him even as low as 364. Honestly, I'm very, very confident in that. I don't see Ismael Bonfim losing this fight. I'm very, very... depends on how the betting side lines up. I might consider him as a parlay piece, but I don't see him losing this fight at all. Let's move on to the next fight, though. Taking on Jamie Mullarkey is Mauricio Ruffy. Now, Mauricio Ruffy, I'm very interested to see how he does because I still don't necessarily have a really good gauge on him because he had a really good performance on the Contender Series, but there was a little bit of controversy with the win because there was a headbutt in there, but still, he did look good. He's a striker with really, really good power, and of course, as you can see, he doesn't have a lot of fights, and his competition has not been good at all. So that's why I said I'm pretty excited to see him in the octagon. He's taking on Jamie Mullarkey, who hasn't been able to put it together. He is a very well-rounded fighter, but he doesn't really stand out. He can do a little bit of everything, but he's not really that great at anything. He's had 2 really rough losses as of late, but it is important to note they are 2 good competition, in my opinion. Nothing really, again, stands out about the opponents, but there's nothing really screams to me like, oh my God, well, that's a great loss to have. You know what I mean? So When these two match up, I see Jamie Mullarkey, who has a little bit of a past of being a little bit chinny, Mauricio Ruffy having really, really good power. If Jamie Mullarkey comes in and tries to wrestle, then we could maybe get some answers from Mauricio Ruffy on how he'll be able to deal with somebody who does have that UFC experience. It just worries me because you have these guys that are so inexperienced coming in, making their UFC debut. Worries me a little bit. MMA experience, I mean, and the UFC experience is something else. We've seen a lot from these contender guys lately that they just haven't looked good once they step into the octagon. The octagon jitters come in, the competition level is completely different, and it's really different from Mauricio Ruffy. So it's a tough pick. I worry about Mauricio Ruffy. This is certainly not one to bet on in my opinion, but I will be taking Mauricio Ruffy. Jamie Mullarkey just hasn't been able to put it together, and Ruffy has shown to have really good power. I think it's more likely that he ends up chinning Jamie Mullarkey. For who I hope wins, I would like to see Jamie Mullarkey get a win and go on a little bit of a streak. He's just had a little bit of a rough go as of lately, but I want to bring you over to the betting side of things, and you can see that Mauricio Ruffy is a little bit of a favorite. If you're looking for underdog opportunities, Jamie Mullarkey might be something to take into consideration because, again, we haven't seen any UFC experience from Mauricio Ruffy, and Jamie Mullarkey knows what that's all about. So I don't mind Jamie Mullarkey as an underdog, but I still will pick Mauricio Ruffy to win the fight. Let's move on to the next fight, that being Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Iasmin Luicindo. This is actually a really interesting fight for the division. I'm a fan of Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I've always been a fan of her. I've always liked watching her fight. It is important to note, and I'll start with her, I guess. She's a really, really slick striker with the division. She has been in the game for a very long time, and she had a really rough go a little while ago, but she's put together 4 straight wins. It is important to note, though, to take a look at that competition level. Those were all very, very winnable matchups for Karolina, as well as very low-level competition. But I do want to note the past performance she had, because I was worried leading up to the Diana Belbita fight that her age was starting to show. She's 38 years old, and while she did do a really good job in this fight, she had a classic Karolina Kowalkiewicz performance. She did a great job picking Diana Belbita apart. She is starting to get old at this point in her career. She still pushed through. She still looked good, but she was breathing so hard even just after the first round. I'm done betting on Karolina because her downfall is coming soon. I just don't know if it's necessarily going to be this fight. It's important to note that her age finally started to show. She's taking on Iasmin Luicindo, who is only 22 years old. She is a grappler with fantastic takedowns, pretty much from the clinch. She does a really good job at, once she gets you to the ground, she does a really good job ground pounding you, and she also has submissions, but on the feet, she can be a little bit inactive. She is probably a counter striker. Not probably a counter striker. She is a subpar counter striker, I mean to say. Like, she doesn't do a lot in the feet. She wants to take you down. Now, she is also coming off of a really good performance on Polyana Viana. A lot of people were high on Polyana Viana in this fight, and she controlled her completely the entire time and ended up submitting her. So, this is an interesting matchup. You have Iasmin Luicindo, who definitely has the advantage of the ground, and Karolina, who definitely has an advantage on the feet. I worry about Karolina and her age. Again, in her last fight, she was breathing very, very heavy, and she's taking on somebody who's 22 years old, somebody who comes in and really, really wants to take you down. So, the problem is, this is a fight that I will not be betting on myself. When these two match up, Iasmin is not a good striker. She's a counter striker. She can have effective counters, but Karolina is clearly a better striker. What happens if Luicindo can't take Karolina down? Karolina's probably going to pick her apart, but even then, I worry about Karolina potentially gassing out, being old for the division. I have to lean towards the side of Luicindo, the youth, 22 years old, coming in, and she's done very, very well so far. I worry about her activity on the feet, but I do think that she will get the job done. If she can't, Karolina's going to make it a really rough night for her. And as for who I hope wins the fight, guys, I hope Karolina gets a job done. Like I said, I've been a big fan of Karolina for a very, very long time. One of the OGs of the strawweight division, you know? So, taking a look over at the betting side of things, you can see that Iasmin Luicindo is a decently sizable favorite. I'm not even comfortable with Karolina as an underdog opportunity. Again, the style's there. She's clearly better on the feet, but I worry about the youth, man. And Luicindo is better than your typical strawweight that the UFC brings in these days. Let's keep going on to the next fight, though, that being Gene Silva versus William Gomis. I am very excited to see Gene Silva, and I don't know if it's pronounced Gene. I'm going to say Gene. He's a little bit newer. I had to look back. He's one of the fighters that I wasn't familiar with coming into the UFC, and I actually had to go take a look at him, but This dude is a very good striker, good power, solid takedown defense. He shows his power in his fights. He's a very, very arrogant striker, and that's something that I do want to talk about, okay? Very fun to watch. He had the slowest walkout of all time. He made his presence known in the UFC, man. Came into the UFC, looked so good against Weston Wilson, just had a domination, but the only problem is Weston Wilson is beyond garbage. So how well do you really want to stack up the performance there? Now, William Gomis, on the other hand, is a very well-rounded fighter. He can grind you to decision. He does a good job doing that. Sometimes he can be a little bit low volume with his punches because he gets caught up trying to counter-strike. But other than that, he's a pretty solid fighter. He's looked good as of late coming to the UFC. He ended up getting a couple nice wins, but I'm a little bit confused on where Gene Silva actually fits in the division. I kind of think I know where William Gomis is going to go, and he's going to be one of those guys that, and again, I feel bad saying this, but I think that William Gomis is going to remain unranked. Gene Silva, on the other hand, he came in, he looked good in the Contender Series, but it wasn't necessarily like anything to ride home about. Then he came in against Weston Wilson, his first test in the UFC, and I didn't like the opponent that he faced. So the problem is he has really good power. He does have good striking. Like I said, he has good takedown defense. He wants to keep it on the feet, but he is a very, very cocky striker. He'll drop his hands. He will taunt you. He's going to get cracked. He's going to get cracked. The chin doesn't always hold up. One of these days, he's going to get cracked when he fights somebody who can really, really match his pressure and deal with everything that he's bringing here. And William Gomis, I don't know if he can do that. I still think that Gene Silva is going to get past William Gomis in this fight. Again, here's the thing that I'm trying to say. William Gomis lacks the danger aspect to him that I believe that Gene Silva, you need to beat him. Because Gene Silva will come in, he'll dictate the pace, he'll use his power very well, and I think he's going to get the job done. For who I hope wins the fight, to be honest with you, I don't really care too much. I like, Gene Silva is very entertaining, and I don't have any feelings towards William Gomis. I don't really have any feelings towards who wins the fight in general for this one. It's just going to be fun to watch. Maybe I low-key hope that Gene Silva gets the win just because he is way more interesting. You can see over on the betting screen that Gene Silva is just a little bit of a favorite. That actually surprised me because I thought that he'd be, I don't know. I just thought he'd be a little bit more of a favorite. But, hey, William Gomis might be somebody to target here. I just haven't seen enough from Gene Silva to really be confident in picking him at all. He does have good power. He's looked good so far. But, again, the day where his chin gets cracked is coming. Anyways, though, guys, let's keep moving on to another fight. That being Elvis Brener versus, and I forget how to pronounce the name, Myktybek, Orolbai. I swear to God, I know what I'm talking about, guys. I'm sorry. I'll just say Orolbai. I'm not even going to try with the first name. Orolbai is a subpar striker, but he does have very, very good pressure and very good grappling. So, on top of that, he does have really good cardio, and he's taking on Elvis Brener, who is also a grappler with, again, I guess I could have the same kind of breakdown for them, subpar striking. He is very dangerous once the fight gets to the ground. So, obviously, these guys are going to want to come in and grind one another. They're primarily grapplers with, again, subpar striking. Sometimes you get sloppy bangers from these types of fights, and that's probably why I am not going to be betting on this fight. But Elvis Brener, man, he's put together a very, very quiet win streak. We've seen him for a little while now. The shocker against Guram Kutaladze, and that's kind of what put Elvis Brener on the map over here. Orolbai, though, is coming off of a really nice win over Uros Medic, but it is important to say he took this fight on 4 days' notice. So for his first UFC test, he won against Uros Medic, and I think Uros Medic is a pretty good fighter. Uros Medic also really cranked him. He has a good chin. He has a really good chin because I don't know how some of those shots didn't knock him out. But he pushed through. He got the win. Other than that, he's been fighting over in LFA. And if you guys don't know, I'm a big fan of the LFA organization. I think there is some really, really solid talent there. You guys have guys like Alex Pereira. You have guys like Sean O'Malley. If you guys don't watch LFA, it's a fantastic organization. So I always like when guys come out of LFA, especially having good performances over there because there is good talent. For this fight, though, it's tough because this is a close fight, man. My gut's kind of leaning towards Orolbai, but Elvis Brener shocked us and put together, again, a really, really quiet win streak. I'm kind of thinking this is a little bit of a 50-50 fight, to be honest with you, but I will go with the side of Orolbai very, very reluctantly because I do think he has the cardio advantage, and I do think he has the chin advantage. I don't think Elves Brener is going to catch him at all. So I think, again, it's close to a pick'em fight. I'm very interested to see the odds because I haven't looked at them yet. But, man, very, very solid fight. Let's take a look at over the betting side of things. But before that, I do want to say, I kind of hope Elves Brener gets a job done. I've been really enjoying watching him slowly make his way up the rankings. And you can see Elves Brener at a plus 200 underdog. I don't mind that. That seems about right to me because, again, Orolbai has looked very, very dangerous, but I wouldn't be shocked if Elves Brener ended up shocking the world again. I think the dude's a little bit underrated. Anyways, let's move on to the next fight. That being, and I'm excited for this one, Joanderson versus Jack Shore. Also, I don't know why people were talking crap about this card because I think this card is actually fantastic, even for a pay-per-view. I don't care. I think it's a really, really good card. I am a fan of Joanderson. This dude is a very tough grappler. Heavy pressure, amazing submissions behind it. On the feet, he can lack technique, but the dude tries to come in and kill you. He is taking on Jack Shore, who is also a really good grappler with great pressure. The dude wants to come. He wants to take you down. Doesn't do a ton on the feet. Like I said, wants to come in, wants to take you down. Joanderson is coming off of a very weird win because, of course, before that, he's looked really, really good in the UFC so far. But Jonathan Pierce was taking him down, was controlling him. And Jonathan Pierce goes, hey, get up, or something like, do something, buddy, do something. Then Joanderson just went, nah, 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 nah. Like, actually, he did that. Like, I was watching it, and I didn't hear Jonathan Pierce talking to him. And my dad and I looked at each other and we were like, huh? Because he literally went, nah, 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 nah. And then he got up and got, like, the tightest choke I've ever seen in my life. So this dude actually is, like, aside from this, he has dangerous power. He has very, very slick submissions, can really, really surprise you. Again, they're slick. He's looked good so far. He's put together a 4-fight win streak. I think that he is a very underrated fighter. Again, he's taken on Jack Shore, who has looked really good. He's been relatively inactive. His only loss over to Ricky Simone, but then the last time we did see him was over a year ago. I like the activity from Joanderson. I like the danger aspect that Joanderson brings to this, and I'm probably going to continue riding the Joanderson train until he fights somebody maybe in the rankings. But even then, I think Joanderson has potential. So does Jack Shore, though. I kind of sound like I'm writing off Jack Shore. I don't mean to. I think Jack Shore is also a very good fighter. Joanderson will definitely have more options to win the fight here. I'm going to pick him to win. I think that Joanderson is a very underrated fighter over here. And for who I hope wins, again, Joanderson the dude is just so fun. I will cheer for him usually when he comes about. But let's take a look at what Odds Jam has to say over here for the betting. Joanderson a very, very slight favorite. It's interesting to me that this is close to a pick'em because I'm not super confident in Joanderson to win. I'm kind of sitting at like 80-ish% for Joanderson for my pick here, but I like the danger aspect of him. I like the different aspects he has to win. Even if Jack Shore goes and takes him down, I think that Joanderson has a path to victory. Let's move on, though, to another fight that I'm actually quite interested in seeing. Even for the WMA fights, man, I'm kind of excited to watch them this time around. So we have Dione Barboza taking on Ernesta Karolina. And apologies if I'm saying that wrong. I am excited to watch Ernesta fight again because if you guys haven't known, okay, I know she's 5-0. I'm already kind of on the train. And I know people from the Contender Series, guys. I know. We've seen it before. They come in, they just get demolished, right? This girl is a kickboxing champion. This girl has insane heart for a fighter. Very good cardio. Has the potential to brawl like crazy if you need her to. And she has very good technique. I am excited to watch this girl. The only problem is we haven't seen how good of a grappler she is. On the feet, she is a problem. She's taken on Dione Barboza, who is a decent fighter, to be honest with you. She has okay submissions, but they are against unproven talent. What's interesting to note, I don't know if it's actually on here, but she's one of the few to grind. Oh, it's not. Early in her career, she was one of the few to actually grind out Karolina Silva and get a win over her. So that's a big feather in the cap, but it is important to note that's very early in both of their careers. Karolina Silva has probably vastly improved since then. She has put together a quiet win streak, and she got a nice, armbar win over in the Contender Series. But again, like I said, it is against unproven talent. So I'm left with a little bit of a problem when picking this fight because, again, for Ernesta, I am very high on this girl, but we haven't seen her grappling. I was very confident in betting on her if she was not fighting a grappler, but the problem is she's fighting somebody who finishes her fights by submission. So, well, recently. But I mean, like, I know how that just made me look, but Diane Barboza does have submissions in her game, honestly. And the threat's definitely there, okay? Ernesta, I need to see more from her. I think that she'll have no problem taking on Diane Barboza on the feet. She will destroy her on the feet, but if she gets taken down, I don't know how that's going to go. But from what I've seen from both these, I have a subpar fight over here against somebody who I believe has insane potential and just had one of the craziest wars on the Contender Series that we've seen in a long time. It is important to note also against Carly Judas was a split decision. I gave the fight to her. Regardless, I am high on Ernesta. I want to see her win. I hope she wins this fight, and I'm definitely picking her to win. But for betting on... Ooh, okay. Check this out. Ernesta's an underdog. I might jump on that just because of her potential. I think she is a fantastic fighter on the field. I think she's miles ahead of a lot of fighters that you see in the WMMA divisions. Again, I know it's a big worry, but the worry is, how's her grappling? I'm going to pick Ernesta to win, and I am going to consider putting money on her at plus money. I haven't looked at any of the odds before breaking down this card. Very interesting. Let's keep going, though, guys, to another banger on this card, that being Alessandro Costa taking on Kevin Borjas. I'm very hyped to see this fight. You have Alessandro Costa, who is a very complete fighter. When he strikes, I like watching this guy, man. When he strikes, he attacks all parts of the body, and he has insanely strong leg kicks. His accuracy is great. His ground game is there too. He is actually a very complete fighter. I always talk about Alessandro Costa, and something that really stands out to me is this guy on the ground. I love his ground defense. If somebody goes and tries to take him to the ground, he's always shoving his hands and elbows into his opponent's throat, and I love that for a defense. It's a little bit, I don't want to say dirty because there's nothing wrong with doing it, but he's like making the fight a little ugly. The only downside, and this is kind of a downside the way you look at it, is he never chooses the safe route in his fights. For example, if he's in a fight and he could have mount, okay, he would instead try to finish the fight and potentially lose position where he could get mount and then grind out to an arm triangle or get a TKO win. He will just try to do whatever he can to finish you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And actually, that cost him the fight against Steve Erceg, never taking the safe route. Steve Erceg was able to get position on this guy. So sometimes it works for him, sometimes it doesn't. Anyways, talking a lot about Alessandro Costa. I just really like watching the guy fight. I'm sorry. He's taking on Kevin Borjas, who is a striker with crazy hand speed, crazy volume. I haven't seen enough of his striking. Well, I mean, like, against competition like Alessandro Costa. I think this guy kind of has pillow hands, but I would need to see him strike a little bit more. He has room for improvement, okay? So, hasn't shown to necessarily have any knockout power. The only problem with Kevin Borjas is he has a huge hole in his game. A huge hole. That being his takedown defense. He doesn't have any takedown defense, and his ground game is subpar. If he's on the feet, he can hang pretty much anybody, but the hole is a big hole. That's a little bit of a problem, and he was steamrolling his opponents, got a really nice win over the Contender Series against Victor Diaz, but his opponent wasn't necessarily that good in the Contender Series, so he got in the UFC, and then he fought Joshua Van, who I'm still, like, from taking away the fight against Joshua Van, I'm still feeling pretty decent about this guy. He just really needs to fix that hole in his game, because when he's fighting someone like Alessandro Costa, he can definitely 100% take advantage of that. So I've always said with this guy, especially after the Joshua Van fight, and I don't mean to say like I've always said it, but from what we can see from Kevin Borjas, it's always been a hole in his game. It's going to continue to be a hole in his game. It's something that he needs to improve, and until I see him improve that and implement a change into his strategy, I'm not really going to pick him to win, especially if he fights a guy who is as complete as Alessandro Costa. Can absolutely explore the ground options there, but I will say, like, Kevin Borjas on the feet, he can hang with pretty much anybody in the division. He is a very good striker, but I like the different options that Alessandro Costa has here. He can take it to the ground. I don't think that he's not going to take it to the ground. I'm all over Alessandro Costa in this fight. I really am. For who I hope wins, though, I hope Costa gets the job done, man, because I think watching him is honestly kind of a treat. I really like watching this, and I gotta worry about when I say that word because my dog's around, and then she'll come, and then I'll have to do a little bit of a cut. But anyways, let's take a look at Odds Jam. Interesting that this fight is fairly close. I'm strongly considering, and I probably will, place a bet on Alessandro Costa. I don't typically bet unless the odds are nuts prior to the events. I usually go one event at a time. I know that it could be a good strategy, but it's just the way I go. I like to be organized in that sense. So I am probably, if the lines kind of stay like this come the weekend, I'm going to play Alessandro Costa. I'm feeling very good about him in this matchup. I think he's definitely going to win this fight. Let's continue on. Still on the prelims, we have Joaquim Silva taking on Jakar Close. Another fight that I personally can't wait to see. Joaquim Silva is finally on everybody's radar because after the loss to Arman Tsarukyan, I believe it was this. Yes, it was this one. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was this one or this one. Regardless, he had Arman Tsarukyan on ice skates at a minus 1,000 underdog, or a plus 1,000, excuse me, or either that or Arman was a plus or minus 1,000 favorite. Regardless, he was a ridiculous underdog, and he almost beat Arman Tsarukyan. And finally, people are putting Joaquim Silva on their radar. I think he's a pretty good fighter. He is a grappler primarily, but he does have very, very big power in his hands. But of course, he wants to come in. He wants to take you down. He wants to grapple you out. He's coming off of a really nice win over Clay Guida, but the problem is Clay Guida's old now. He did look strong. He looked accurate the whole time. He was very composed, very patient. A little bit, I want to say he's been improved in this fight, but how much has he improved? Because again, it's against Clay Guida. I feel like in this fight, though, he would have finished a lot of fighters. Clay Guida is just a guy that won't go away. He's taking on Jakar Close, who is a very good wrestler when he is offensively wrestling. That's important to note because he can be pressured. That's the problem. But other than that, he is also a very good boxer with decent power behind his hands. He's just one of those decently well-rounded guys. He's coming off a very quick performance, but he's put together 3 really nice wins. He's looking good. So when these two match up, I am not even sure that Close will have the advantage on the feet. I feel like Joaquim Silva will get him to the ground because, again, we've seen Close be able to be pressured, and Joaquim Silva is the guy to kind of pressure you and want to take you down and beat you up there. Close also is a good wrestler, but this one's a little bit more of a gut feeling, man. I think Joaquim Silva is just a little bit better when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to BJJ. Even on the feet, you got to worry about Joaquim Silva's hands. Again, he had Arman Tsarukyan on ice skates. Close is a decent fighter. 36 years old. He's out of his prime now. And I know Joaquim Silva just turned 35. That's not too much of a difference. But I do like Joaquim Silva in this fight. For who I opens, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. But let's take a look at what the odds jam is saying. It's a little bit of a close fight. You have Joaquim Silva actually at an underdog. Very interesting again. Have I picked a lot of underdogs this time around? I don't really recall, to be honest with you. That's one to consider hitting. Hey, when the betting guide comes out, maybe we'll have some pretty good underdog opportunities over here. I'm very, very excited. But guys, I want to take a quick pause on the video. I talk a lot about betting in these videos, so if you are interested in either supporting the channel or seeing my official plays every single Thursday or Friday before the event, I primarily bet on UFC, but sometimes other organizations. Check out the channel membership. It is extremely cheap compared to other channels. I also upload a members-only video talking about why I place the bets, how confident I am, how much money I'm placing on the bets, so you can get a gauge of exactly where I am if you're interested in tailing or, again, just supporting the channel. Also, if you want to use OddsJam, if you have multiple sports books, it really shines here. It is the fastest at tracking odds. It's a fantastic website. I love using OddsJam. If you want to sign up to OddsJam, check the pinned comment description down below. Also, the membership will be either in the description or right next to the subscribe button. But if you want to sign up to OddsJam, use my link, use code Clenbat. You will get a discount signing up for OddsJam. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Let's get into the main card, starting off with a fight that I am hyped for. Michel Pereira, Ihor Potieria. I have no clue who's going to win this fight. This is the 50-50 fight on the card. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that people have been counting out Ihor Potieria for a very long time. I'll start with him. He is a decent all-round fighter, but definitely a striker. He has big power, but the problem is the dude can get carried away in a brawl. I want to point this out because he had 2 losses on his record and then a win, of course. This Rodolfo Bellato fight was stolen from him completely by the ref. It was a big slugfest until he hurt Bellato, and he beat him for about half a round. The fight 1,000% should have stopped. 100,000% should have stopped, and he gassed out. But any fighter would have gassed out. So I don't look at that as a loss. This is a win on Ihor Potieria's record. Then he bounced back in a new weight class, and he looked really good. And it's important to note against the Bellato fight, and it's another thing I wanted to mention these last 2 fights, is he showed up looking way more in shape than we've seen him. He looked big and powerful, but still at the end of the day, a little bit sloppy. In this fight, I think it was kind of like just having an on night, plus him being at the weight class, him being powerful. I think it was just kind of really set up for him to win. It is important to note, though, Ihor Potieria is actively improving. Like I said, he's showing up in better shape. And what really stood out in his last fight is I loved the new tool that he started utilizing. He would reach for a leg, make you think about taking down, and then he would just bomb you with an uppercut instead of going for a takedown. It's not necessarily like this massive different game changer that we've never seen a fighter do before, but it really stood out in that performance. The uppercuts were bombs, and sometimes the thing was he would go for a takedown too. I just think that Ihor Potieria is improving. But speaking of fighters that is improving, Michel Pereira, man, also at a new weight class. So you have Ihor Potieria, who was a light heavyweight, Michel Pereira, who was a welterweight. They're meeting at middleweight. Now, he is a very powerful, flashy striker with a ground game to back it up. He has put together a very quiet but impressive win streak against decent opponents too. Like, he beat Andre Petrosky and Michael Olekstruck both very quickly, and he's been looking, man, the dude's been dangerous. The dude has been insanely dangerous, but so has Ihor Potieria. I truthfully don't know who to pick in this fight. I don't. If you made me pick for a video, I'm going with Ihor Potieria. I would have to wait to see how these guys actually stack up to see if Ihor is really like a little bit way bigger than Michel Pereira, but Michel Pereira is also a big guy, so this is maybe like a wait for weigh-ins type pick for me, but I think that both guys are ever improving. Both guys are on a roll. Ihor Potieria is improving, and I think people are completely counting him out. If Ihor Potieria is an underdog, I'm definitely going to consider betting on him. For who I hope wins, guys, it's one of those fights where I really hope that both guys, it sucks that one guy has to lose because they both, hang on, they've both been looking really good. Oh my God. Oh, Ihor Potieria plus 310 underdog at some parts, 325 I see. That's crazy. I think that's crazy, and that's something that I'm considering hitting just for the sake of value there. That is insane to me. Ihor Potieria is still being counted out. I think that's nuts. I think that Michel Pereira is great, and he could absolutely win this fight, but for minus 400, no way. No way. That's crazy in my opinion. I can't believe that people haven't caught on to Ihor Potieria yet. I'm not saying he's like championship material. I just think that he's vastly underrated. So I truthfully believe that this is a pick'em fight. Don't know who's going to win. I don't know who I hope wins. It's just going to be one of those fights I'm going to chill. I'm going to be excited to watch this fight because this is a crazy card, man. I'm excited for the fights. Let's keep going up the main card, though. We have on paper the greatest fighter in UFC history, that being Anthony Smith taking on Vitor Petrino. Anthony Smith has been struggling to put it together. The dude has been aging. He's a striker with a ton of heart, but again, his age has been showing. He's been showing up more slow. He's been showing up with, I don't want to say little technique. He just hasn't been able to put it together. He's been winning. He's been losing. Even this Ryan Spann win was very controversial. And I will say with the Khalil Rountree Jr., while he did end up being finished in the third, what's wrong with me? He ended up getting finished in the third round. Sorry. He did look much better in this fight. He walked forward. He made it a dogfight. He should actually do that more because he did have times where he found success in the striking, but I also believe that Khalil Rountree he's good, but I believe he's overrated. So Anthony Smith, and it's important to note that he's looked better than pretty much all of these fights down here, okay? He's taking on Vitor Petrino, who is a very good striker with huge power, and he has some pretty good technique in general. He's coming off of a win that really made me kind of halt the brakes on Vitor Petrino because he was looking like a killer so many times, but then nothing really happened in the Tyson Pedro fight, and Tyson Pedro taking him to decision, nothing really happening. I don't know how I feel about that. So here's the problem. I'm not high on Anthony Smith. I'm not high on Vitor Petrino. But Vitor Petrino has the hunger. Vitor Petrino has the power. Vitor Petrino has the youth. Vitor Petrino is more likely to improve. And Anthony Smith is more likely to continue to get old. Just think, no matter if he loses, I can beat this guy on paper. But like I know it's fun to meme on Anthony Smith about him talking about, I'm better than John Jones. I can take Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira, real recognized real. I deserve to fight Alex Pereira. Like, I know it's fun to meme on him, but that's actually such a horrible mindset to have. And he's probably not improving. And he has shown in his fights that he isn't improving. He just sits back and goes, it wasn't my day. And just on paper, I'm better than him. And I know, again, it's a meme, but seriously, a horrible attitude to have. It really is. He's not going to improve. I don't think he's going to improve. He's still aging, a lot of miles on the body, has a lot of fights, been taking so much damage in his career. I'm picking Vitor Petrino, but would you be crazy if I said that I'm not confident enough in Vitor Petrino to bet on him? I'm just not, man. I'm just not. For who I hope wins this fight, I don't really care, to be honest with you. Let's take a look at the betting. Let's take a look at what we have over here. So, Vitor Petrino sitting at a minus 500 favorite at some points, minus 470, minus 455. I'm not touching that. I don't think he's safe to parlay. That one, again, a little bit of a gut feeling on that one. Don't know why exactly, but I see room for an upset there. But I will pick Vitor Petrino to win the fight. Moving on up the card, though, we have Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. The matchmakers did a fantastic job with this one. Fantastic job. Paul Craig has had a little bit of a rough go as of lately. He's 36 years old at this point. He is a grappler with a hole in the striking game. He wants to get you to the ground. If he does, he's extremely dangerous. He's one of those guys that you can never count out. He's been beat up before. He can throw up a triangle choke. The dude is very, very dangerous. And again, like I said, you can't count him out. He's taking on Caio Borralho, who is also a grappler with great submissions, just like Paul Craig. Takedowns are amazing. They're well-timed. They're powerful. I will give the edge of takedowns to Caio Borralho. He's also has a lot of judo in his back pocket. He is BJJ. Like, I'm not saying that as Paul Craig doesn't. I'm just saying Caio Borralho, he can utilize throws, something you don't necessarily see from Paul Craig. So I'm a little bit confused on where Paul Craig stands in the middleweight division because he moved down to middleweight, of course, against Andre Muniz, okay? And he looked pretty good. He didn't look drained, and he had a really, really good fight. And it was a back and forth fight. He just showed like he was really, really tough. He looked very strong at the weight class. He had a good performance, man. He ended up finding Mount. He ended up finishing the fight, but then he fought Brendan Allen, who at the time I thought Brendan Allen was on track to be champion, but after the Chris Curtis performance, I'm not really feeling that about Brendan Allen. So how much does a loss to Brendan Allen really think? Because before that last fight with Brendan Allen, I would have sit here and said, well, Brendan Allen would beat anybody, but I was completely wrong about Brendan Allen. I thought he was so much better than he actually is. Brendan Allen dominated him, even on the ground. So we've seen Paul Craig get dominated on the ground by Brendan Allen. I kind of have to assume, but I don't know. I have to assume that Caio Borralho will also be capable of dominating him on the ground, but we haven't seen Caio Borralho against a grappler like Paul Craig. He's taken on very good grapplers. He's taken on very good strikers. He's taken on very good competition. But I don't think he's taking on anybody with the dangerous submission threat that Paul Craig has. But Caio Borralho is also fantastic. The control's there. The submissions are there. I think that when these two come up, I don't think... The problem is Paul Craig might outsize Caio Borralho. He might be able to use his strength to get him to the ground. But if these two are engaging in grappling, I would imagine it's Caio Borralho taking down Paul Craig. But Paul Craig is also very active off of his back. Problem being, Paul Craig is one of those fighters you can never count out. He is very big for this division, but he is 36 years old. That worries me. The day where he's slowing down is coming. That could be been against Brendan Allen, but I also think that Brendan Allen just outskilled him. Anthony Smith on paper, I think that Caio Borralho should win this fight. But like I said, Paul Craig is one of those guys that you just can never count out. I'm going to pick Caio Borralho to win the fight. I think he'll be able to grind him out. Plus, hey, you know what? Maybe we'll see one of those fights where two grapplers come in and they're forced to strike. If that's the case, I don't even know who's going to win that. That's fantastic matchmaking by the UFC, guys. But I will pick Caio Borralho. Definitely not going to be betting on that one. Excuse me there. I'm still getting used to my new buttons over here. Sometimes this video is a little bit of a mix-up over here. Sorry about that. But anyways, for who I hope wins the fight, though, all over Paul Craig, guys. All over Paul Craig. I love Paul Craig. He's a fun fighter to watch. He's very entertaining. I've always been rooting for the guy, so I'm definitely going to be rooting for him this time around. Over on Odds Jam, we see Paul Craig sitting at around a plus 340, 320 underdog. Caio Borralho is a big favorite. I am never going to get a bet against Paul Craig because, again, we've seen him lots of times get beat up and then all of a sudden, oh, his opponent's in a submission. So definitely not one I'm going to touch, but I will reluctantly pick Caio Borralho to win the fight. Let's move on to the co-main event. We have Jonathan Martinez taking on Jose Aldo. Guys, Jonathan Martinez is a guy that I've been talking about for a long time, a guy that I've been watching for a long time. I've been watching Jose Aldo for a long time too, but this dude is one of the most underrated fighters at bantamweight, and if he wins over against Jose Aldo, I think that people might actually start paying attention to him. I don't know why people haven't been paying attention to him. He has been coming in the bantamweight division and kind of destroying people, and it's against a really good competition as well. He is an extremely complete fighter with standout Muay Thai and amazing leg kicks. We all know Jose Aldo. Again, an incredible, complete fighter. The only problem is he's 37 years old now. He's started to take losses in his career. Jose Aldo's coming out of retirement. Okay? And it's important to note, he's also coming down to the bantamweight division. That makes me worry because, of course, he had success in the bantamweight division, but that's over 3 years ago. Then he had the recent loss against Merab Dvalishvili, which was 2 years ago. I know Aldo's been boxing. I know Aldo has been active, but this makes me worry. If this was a prime Jose Aldo, this would be a lot different to break down, in my opinion. But I think Jonathan Martinez will be the faster fighter. I think he'll be more dangerous. I think he'll be more hungry. And I think Jonathan Martinez definitely has the edge there. Plus, you got to worry. How many times have we seen these fighters who Jose Aldo's pushing 38 years old? How often do people that age have success in the bantamweight division? Plus, how much has Jose Aldo been seriously training? How hungry is he? There's a lot of talk online right now that Jose Aldo wants to fight out the last fight on his contract. I actually don't know how true that is, but people are saying that he wants to go somewhere else. That also means he's not hungry. He just wants to come in. He wants to make money. He wants to get out of the UFC and do something else. He hasn't made the weight in 2 years. That's also something to take into consideration. He could get finished this fight. He could be drained. I think that everything right now is kind of stacking up against Jose Aldo. And you have a prime Jonathan Martinez who is so underrated for the division and so dangerous. Something interesting to note, though, is Jose Aldo, let's say that he is on the ball. I'm very interested to see how the leg kicking game goes because both of them have fantastic leg kicks. Jonathan Martinez has amazing leg kicks. Jose Aldo is fantastic at checking leg kicks. I'm interested to see those exchanges, and I wish this was a prime Jose Aldo fighting Jonathan Martinez, but I gotta assume the guy who's hungry, the guy who has been not super active, but definitely more active than Jose Aldo. I just think that this fight's kind of set up for Jonathan Martinez to win. Jose Aldo is a little too old at this point, and I worry about him making weight. I worry about his motivation. I'm definitely going to be picking Jonathan Martinez to win the fight, but if Jose Aldo is the Jose Aldo that left, if he hasn't aged at all, if he's still the same guy that fought Merab, he will definitely give, Jonathan Martinez a lot of issues. For who I hope wins the fight, guys, I'm an Aldo fan, don't get me wrong, but I've been a fan of Jonathan Martinez and his fight style for a very, very long time. I think the dude's underrated. I would love to see him become a champion. Let's move on over to Odds Jam, though. Close to a pick'em fight, you Jonathan Martinez at a very, very slight favorite. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Jonathan Martinez should be sitting around a minus 200. There's actually a lot of spots that I see targeting this time around. It's going to be a very interesting card to bet. Hey, check out the membership if you'd like to see where I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is. Let's move on, though, to the main event of the evening, that being Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. I will say, guys, I think people are counting out Steve Erceg. I really do believe that, okay? I do. You have Alexandre Pantoja, who is an all-around fighter with a pretty good gas tank, and he is especially good on the ground. He is very good adjusting during the fights, having a game plan to beat his opponents. He's taking on Astro Boy Steve Erceg, who is a very, very complete all-round fighter. He can do everything and is technical everywhere. He has a good chin. He has good cardio. The dude literally has everything. Now, I will say the only problem is, I don't want to say it's a hole, but in Steve Erceg's game, he has been shown to have a little bit of issues if you drag the guy into a brawl. I think he's a fantastic fighter. I'm unsure about him being the best. I wish that he fought somebody above number 9. I'm assuming that's where he's ranked in the UFC. I don't know exactly where he's ranked in the UFC, but I was hoping that he would have one more test before Alexandre Pantoja. But he is, since we've seen him in the UFC, man, he's looked so good against great opponents. I was just talking about how great Alessandro Costa is. He put on a clinic in one of those rounds against Alessandro Costa, ended up getting the win. I think Steve Erceg's a very underrated fighter. I'm kind of convincing myself to pick Steve Erceg. It's tough, man, because I think that the way to beat Steve Erceg is to drag him into a brawl. I think Alexandre Pantoja won't do that. I don't. But Alexandre Pantoja is also a complete fighter. Both guys are really good everywhere. The only thing is, even the stats are similar. Steve Erceg will have a little bit of a height advantage. Alexandre Pantoja is aging. We've seen him take some deep breaths in fights. We don't know how Steve Erceg will deal with the deep waters that Alexandre Pantoja will drag him in. Guys, this isn't a fight to bet on, in my opinion. I don't think you should be betting on this fight. I think it is a fantastic fight. I think it's a great matchup. I will say, I think everybody's counting out Steve Erceg. I'm having a little bit of a gut feeling, man, that Steve Erceg might win this fight. I know I hate making these videos and talking about gut feelings. I'm just kind of feeling Steve Erceg. Tough pick. I'm going to pick Steve Erceg. The dude's just impressed me in every single one of his fights. The only problem is this is a huge step up in competition. I like Alexandre Pantoja, but I would like to see Steve Erceg get the job done to be that much of an underdog. Well, I don't even know necessarily if he's that much of an underdog. Wow, okay. We're taking a look at Odds Jam. He's sitting at a plus 210, so it looks like just the casual fan base, maybe. A little bit of the hardcore fans are kind of counting him out. Because I'm seeing a lot of people count him out. And sorry, my Epic Games notifications there. Excuse me over there. If you guys are interested, go check out Clen on YouTube. You can find it on the channel page. We play games over there. Anyways, it's very interesting. I can't wait to see this fight. I can't wait. I think Steve Erceg is definitely a live dog. But Alexandre Pantoja is a very, very proven fighter, guys. It's going to be great. The card's going to be great. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think about the picks down below. I will pick Steve Erceg. I'm picking Steve Erceg reluctantly. It's a close fight. Check out the video on screen right now, guys, if you want to keep watching the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Take care.